The rain had stopped just before dawn, leaving the earth damp and heavy with the smell of mud and gunpowder, a scent she was beginning to associate with every breath she took in this war zone. Private Eliza Cade adjusted the sling of her long sniper rifle, the weapon almost too large for her lean frame, and kept her eyes forward as the platoon gathered in the briefing tent. She could feel their stares, the quiet smirks, the muttered jokes that weren't even subtle anymore. To them she was just a rookie, the kid who got assigned because someone higher up thought every squad needed one fresh face to test under fire. She'd heard worse than the whispers though. Hope she doesn't flinch when the first shot's fired. She looks like she belongs in a classroom, not a battlefield. Bet she can't even carry that rifle up the ridge. Eliza ignored them all, jaw clenched, because she had long ago learned that words only cut if you let them in. She had chosen the path of a sniper because it demanded silence, patience, and precision, all things she had trained to master when the world never thought she could. The captain's voice carried above the din, outlining the mission. They were to move into the hills overlooking the valley, where insurgents had been setting up heavy artillery positions that threatened the convoy routes. Every eye turned to the map projected on the wall, but Eliza was already calculating lines of sight, elevation, wind speeds. She lived inside the math of distance, the way the earth curved, the time a bullet would take to travel from muzzle to target. That was her refuge. Her hands moved almost instinctively to check the scope, the bolt, the bipod, everything in ritual order. She remembered the weeks at sniper school when instructors had drilled into her mind the unbreakable rules of the craft. Measure twice, shoot once. Concealment is survival, patience is lethal. And she had excelled, though no one believed it because she was smaller, younger, quieter than most. Even now, when her file said she had aced simulations others had failed, the veterans around her didn't look at her as a soldier. They looked at her as a liability. As they moved out, dawn painted the mountains in shades of pale gold and ash. The trek up the ridge was brutal, a winding path of loose rock and sudden drops, but Eliza carried her rifle with a steadiness that surprised even herself. She could hear one of the older sergeants behind her mutter something about betting she'd quit halfway. She didn't respond. Every step was deliberate, steady breathing in through her nose, out through her mouth, the rhythm of someone who had learned to pace endurance. At one point the squad had to stop when the point man spotted movement ahead, but it was only a pair of wild goats scrambling down the slope. Still, the tension reminded Eliza that danger could come from anywhere at any time. By the time they reached the overlook, the valley stretched before them like a painting. Below, almost 3 kilometers away, enemy trucks moved in a staggered line, unloading crates near the shadow of an old fortress ruin. Through her scope, Eliza could make out men working quickly, setting up what looked unmistakably like the framework for heavy-caliber artillery. If those weapons went operational, convoys carrying supplies and wounded soldiers would be easy prey. The captain ordered the team to set up observation while relaying coordinates back to command. Eliza lay flat against the cold ground, her rifle balanced on its bipod, her cheek pressed to the stock. The scope brought the distant world into sharp focus. She could see a man light a cigarette, the spark tiny but vivid through the lens. She could see the shimmer of heat rising from metal. She could see the long stretch of nothing between her and them, a gulf most would consider impossible to close with a bullet. Beside her, Corporal Harris, a seasoned sniper with a beard flecked gray, chuckled as he noticed her line of sight. "Don't even think about it, rookie," he said, his voice low. "That's over 3,000 meters. Out of your league. Hell, out of anyone's league out here. Even if you could, command wouldn't authorize a shot like that." Eliza didn't answer. She simply adjusted her scope, recalibrating for distance, factoring wind. Harris shook his head, muttering, "Kids always think this is some kind of video game." She let the insult wash over her, her focus unbroken. For Eliza, this wasn't about proving herself to them. It was about doing the math, feeling the shot, preparing for the moment when she might have to make it. The day dragged into a long wait, the squad rotating watches, eating in silence, always scanning the valley below. Hours tested patience and patience tested nerves. Through it all, Eliza remained steady, her rifle an extension of her body, her eyes locked on patterns of movement. Every now and then someone would sneer and call her rookie again, but she had learned that patience was more than a sniper's weapon, it was also armor. She didn't need their approval. She needed the right moment, and when it came, she intended to be ready. Night fell over the ridge with a silence so deep it seemed the earth itself was holding its breath. The squad had settled into shifts, some resting against the rocks, others keeping eyes on the valley below, but Eliza did not move from her position. She kept her cheek pressed to the rifle stock, her body still, her breathing slow, her mind locked in that state between patience and anticipation that only a sniper truly understood. Through her scope, the enemy camp had grown busier, trucks coming and going, shadows of men working tirelessly beneath lantern light. They were fortifying the site, building defenses, assembling weapons that could change the balance of the conflict if left unchecked. Each movement below drew a precise calculation in her head: range, wind, humidity, bullet drop, spin drift, all of it cycling through her thoughts like second nature. She did not speak, she did not boast, she did not even blink for long. To the rest of the squad, she was invisible, a rookie keeping herself occupied, but inside she was already preparing for what might come. A voice cut through the night, low and harsh, the captain issuing new orders after receiving intel from command. The enemy was expected to launch an offensive within 48 hours, and the artillery taking shape in the valley was confirmed to be their spearhead. Air support was delayed, ground reinforcements were stretched thin, and that left their small squad with one responsibility: hold position, gather intel, and prevent those guns from becoming operational at any cost. Murmurs of discontent rippled through the group, veterans grumbling about the impossible task. Harris cursed under his breath, saying they were being asked to swat a hornet's nest with a stick. Eliza said nothing, but her mind had already accepted the reality. At any cost meant something very specific to her. It meant that when the time came she would have to try the impossible. Hours crawled by. At one point a flare lit up the valley in a ghostly green, and she caught a glimpse of the barrel of the first heavy cannon being lowered into place. Her heart gave a single hard thump, then steadied. 3,700 meters. The number stuck in her head like a whisper, daring her. She adjusted her scope again, fine-tuning settings most wouldn't bother with because they thought such a shot belonged to fantasy. Harris noticed her movements and laughed quietly, shaking his head. Still chasing that pipe dream, rookie? You'd be lucky to hit dirt that far. He turned away before she could respond, certain she had nothing worth saying. But Eliza's silence wasn't defeat, it was discipline. Every second she spent perfecting calculations, she was building a weapon no one else could see: certainty. When dawn broke again, tension hung over the squad like a storm cloud. The enemy camp below was alive with activity, dozens of men moving in coordinated lines, stacking shells, adjusting equipment. The captain swore under his breath and ordered the radio operator to patch through another request for support. Command's reply was grim: hold your position, do not engage unless absolutely necessary. The veterans muttered curses, some suggesting withdrawal before they were discovered, but the captain shut them down. We hold, he said, voice like steel. We hold or we lose that valley. Eliza kept her eye to the scope, her world narrowed to a circle of glass and light, her pulse steady. She could feel her finger twitch, not on the trigger but near it, as if her body already knew what was coming. By midday the air was shimmering with heat, waves rising from the valley floor like a mirage. Eliza adjusted for it, noting how distortion shifted outlines, how targets seemed to bend. She slowed her breathing, let the sweat drip into the dirt, ignored the ache in her shoulder. Harris lounged nearby, chewing on dried rations, occasionally glancing at her with a smirk. Keep dreaming, rookie, he muttered. But when a shout went up from the squad's lookout, everyone snapped to attention. A convoy of enemy vehicles was approaching the camp, and at its center, a figure stepped out, flanked by guards. Through her scope, Eliza recognized the insignia on his vest. This wasn't just another soldier. This was their commander, the architect of the artillery strategy, the man who had been orchestrating the attacks across the region. If he survived, the valley would burn. The captain hissed a curse and immediately gave the order to mark and track but not engage. Too risky, too far, too unauthorized. Yet Eliza's finger brushed the trigger guard, her mind already spinning through the math again. Distance, 3,702 meters. Elevation difference, 60 meters. Wind direction, 7 degrees east. Wind speed, 5.3 meters per second. Humidity, 65%. Temperature, 31 Celsius. Bullet flight time, close to 10 full seconds. Every number slid into place like pieces of a puzzle, and as the puzzle completed itself, she felt the weight of inevitability pressing down on her. She knew she could take this shot. She knew no one believed she could. She knew if she failed, they would all laugh, and worse, they might all die when the artillery opened fire. Her breathing slowed. Inhale. Exhale. The camp below bustled with movement, men unaware of the eye staring at them from a mountain ridge. The commander barked orders, his arm raised, and Eliza saw the flash of sunlight off the scope mounted on the artillery piece behind him. 10 seconds. That was all it would take for the bullet to cross the distance. 10 seconds in which everything, wind, gravity, the world itself, would try to push her shot off course. But if she trusted the math, if she trusted herself, it could be done. Her hand steadied, her cheek pressed harder into the stock, her lungs emptied halfway and held. Around her, the squad muttered and cursed, oblivious to what she was about to attempt. To them she was still just a rookie. To her, this was the moment she had been waiting for since the first day she picked up a rifle. The world seemed to shrink into the thin line of her scope, everything else dissolving into a blur of shapes and sound that no longer mattered. She could hear the faint murmur of voices behind her, the clink of gears shifting, the sigh of someone impatient, but none of it reached the part of her mind that mattered now. All that existed was the target. An enemy commander barking orders, his hands gesturing sharply as men hurried to obey, and the long, invisible arc her bullet would have to travel to reach him. Eliza's heart was steady, not racing like it had in training, not thundering like she once feared it would in combat. Instead, it was calm, the rhythm of someone who had prepared for this moment her entire life without even realizing it. She exhaled slowly, let the breath pause at the edge of release, and tightened her finger on the trigger until the rifle roared. The recoil was a sharp push against her shoulder, familiar, expected, almost gentle compared to the violence she had just unleashed. For a fraction of a second the scope jerked off target, then steadied again. She knew the bullet was flying now, cutting through the air, a silent predator on its long journey. 10 seconds. That was the eternity of a shot like this. 10 seconds where doubt could creep in, where wind could shift, where the earth itself seemed to conspire against her. But Eliza did not doubt. She counted silently in her mind, eyes locked on the target who still moved, unaware of the fate racing toward him. 1, 2, 3. She saw him lift a hand, pointing toward the artillery. 4, 5. A guard stepped in front of him for an instant, then shifted away. 6, 7. The commander's head tilted as if sensing something. 8, 9. The shot landed. Through her scope she saw the impossible made real. The man staggered, his expression frozen in confusion, and then he crumpled into the dirt. For a moment the camp did not react, as if no one had understood what had happened. The guards looked around wildly, some pointing toward the ridges, others ducking for cover, but it was too late. Panic spread in ripples, shouts rising as soldiers scrambled, and the once organized construction of artillery dissolved into chaos. Eliza's finger remained steady on the trigger, her breathing unchanged, her body still. Inside, however, a fierce fire lit in her chest. Not pride. Not triumph. Certainty. She had known it was possible, and now the world knew too. Behind her, silence hung heavier than the gunpowder in the air. Harris's voice broke it, low and stunned, stripped of the mocking edge it had carried before. "No way," he whispered. "No damn way." Others muttered disbelief, some cursing, some laughing nervously as though their minds refused to accept what they'd just witnessed. The captain stared at her, his jaw tight, his eyes hard with both astonishment and calculation. Did you just?" he began, then stopped himself, shaking his head as if the words were too absurd to finish. Eliza kept her gaze on the valley, scanning for movement, ready to fire again if needed. "Target down," she said calmly, her voice steady as though announcing a training result. Command structure disrupted. Artillery assembly delayed. The enemy camp below was a storm now, soldiers scattering, shouting orders that overlapped, some trying to drag the commander's body, others firing wildly into the mountains as if hoping to hit a ghost. Eliza adjusted her scope, marking positions, noting how their efficiency had fractured with one well-placed shot. This was the ripple effect of precision. It wasn't just the life she had taken, it was the confidence she had shattered, the strategy she had upended, the hours or days they had bought for their own forces. She felt the weight of it but did not let it crush her. This was war, and in war, moments like these decided who lived and who died. The captain finally snapped out of his trance, barking orders to record and relay what had just happened. The radio operator stammered as he described the impossible shot to command, disbelief thick in his voice. Harris crouched beside Eliza, his usual smirk gone, replaced by a look she couldn't quite read, respect maybe or perhaps fear. 3,700, he muttered under his breath, almost to himself. That's history. That's insane. Eliza didn't reply. She didn't need to. She knew numbers better than she knew words, and the number 3,700 now meant something no one could ignore. But as the adrenaline faded, the weight of reality pressed in. The enemy wouldn't let this go unanswered. Already, mortars were being dragged into place and searchlights swept the ridges, probing for the source of the shot. The squad ducked low, scrambling for cover as explosions shook the ground nearby. The captain cursed and ordered them to relocate, but every eye that flicked toward Eliza carried something new now. No one called her rookie. No one laughed. They followed her as she moved, almost unconsciously treating her as the point of gravity in their small, desperate world. As they slid down the rocks, dirt scraping against their uniforms, Eliza kept her rifle close, her body moving with practiced control. She knew the story of that shot would spread, whispered through radios, carried across camps, exaggerated in retellings until it became legend. But she also knew legends didn't matter in the face of the next fight. What mattered was surviving the night, surviving the barrage that was surely coming, surviving long enough to make sure that one impossible bullet had not been wasted. Behind her, Harris muttered again, this time louder, directed at her. Guess you're not just a rookie after all. His voice carried no mockery, only awe. Eliza gave the faintest of smiles but kept her eyes forward. The war wasn't done, and neither was she. The ridge shook as mortars slammed into the rocks above them, shards of stone slicing the air like shrapnel. The squad scrambled lower down the slope, each man moving with the instinct of soldiers who had survived too many ambushes, but the difference tonight was that every blast felt personal. The enemy wasn't just firing randomly, they were desperate, furious, determined to scour the mountains until they found the ghost who had killed their commander. Eliza slid behind a jagged outcrop, pressing her body tight against the stone as dust rained down on her helmet. Her rifle remained slung across her chest, hands steady, eyes sharp. She knew she had painted a target on all of them, but she also knew the ripple her shot had created was worth the risk. The enemy's lines were fractured, their plans disrupted, and even in their rage they were no longer a machine but a mob. The captain barked orders, voice hoarse against the thunder of explosions, and the squad followed him into a narrow ravine that cut through the mountain. It wasn't shelter so much as concealment, a place where the searchlights sweeping the ridges could not reach, but every soldier knew it was temporary. The enemy had drones, trackers, informants. They would not stop. As they regrouped, the captain turned to Eliza, his expression still carved from disbelief. That shot, he said, keeping his voice low but urgent, no one's going to believe it unless we make it back alive. You just rewrote the record books, Kate. But right now, that also means you've made us the priority target of this valley. We need to move fast. Harris gave a short, humorless laugh. Understatement of the year, he muttered, wiping grime from his face. The others nodded, their eyes flicking toward Eliza with something that felt heavier than respect. It was as if they were all recalibrating in real time, forced to accept that the soldier they had dismissed hours earlier now stood at the center of their survival. She said nothing, simply adjusted the strap of her rifle and waited for the next command. The march through the ravine was brutal, jagged rocks forcing them into single file, the darkness broken only by the dim glow of the moon. Twice they froze as flares burst above the ridge, shadows stretching long and thin across the walls, but the searchlights passed over without settling. Eliza walked in silence, her mind not on the ache in her legs or the throb of exhaustion but on the rhythm of calculations she could not switch off. Every gust of wind, every slope of stone, every distant thud of artillery told her something about the battlefield, and though she had already made history with her shot, she felt in her bones that her role in this fight was only beginning. When they finally reached a wider clearing beneath a canopy of trees, the squad collapsed into silence, drinking water, checking ammo, catching breath. The captain leaned against a tree, eyes narrowing. We've got two choices, he said. We hold here until evac comes in, or we move deeper and try to flank their artillery before it's fully operational. Either way, command knows what Kay did and they're ordering us to keep pressure on that valley. They want the enemy scared. For the first time, all eyes turned to Eliza not with mockery, but with expectation. Harris broke the silence with a grunt. If anyone's going to scare them now, it's her. Eliza adjusted her rifle, sliding into a crouch. Then we keep moving, she said quietly, not as a suggestion but as a certainty. The captain studied her for a long moment, then nodded. All right. We move. The squad rose with renewed energy, the kind soldiers found when purpose outweighed fatigue, and for the first time, Eliza felt them falling into step with her instead of around her. The trek deeper into the mountain was slower, the terrain more unforgiving, but the squad pressed on, skirting ridgelines, slipping through shadows, guided by instinct and the occasional flash of distant gunfire. By dawn, they had reached another vantage point, this one closer to the valley but higher, with a clearer line of sight. Through her scope, Eliza saw the enemy camp again, chaotic and frayed. Soldiers milled about without direction, arguing, shoving one another, still reeling from the loss of their commander. Yet even in their disarray, the artillery stood like dark giants against the horizon, and men worked tirelessly to make them operational. It was only a matter of time before they succeeded. The captain cursed under his breath. If those guns start firing, every convoy, every outpost for 50 kilometers is in danger. We need to delay them again. His gaze slid to Eliza. Think you've got another miracle in you? She didn't answer immediately. She scanned the camp, measuring distances, watching patterns. This wasn't just about one impossible shot anymore. This was about timing, about striking at the exact moment that would cause the maximum disruption. She watched as men loaded shells onto a cart, their movements hurried, sloppy, but efficient enough to worry her. Her finger hovered near the trigger guard, the familiar calm settling over her. I can do it, she said finally, her voice steady. Harris gave a low whistle. I don't know if you're fearless or insane, rookie. Sorry, not rookie. Kate. But if you say you can, I'm not betting against you again. The captain gave a sharp nod, and the squad settled into defensive positions, each man covering angles, every eye aware that the enemy was hunting them just as they hunted in return. Eliza lay prone, scope steady, breathing slow. The valley stretched below, a stage waiting for its next act. She knew they would be coming for her now, perhaps already searching, already marking coordinates, already plotting revenge. But she also knew that every second they were forced into chaos was another second their own forces could regroup, another second the tide of war might shift. She adjusted her scope one last time, aligning crosshairs on the cart stacked high with shells, and let the calm wash over her once again. The world narrowed, the numbers aligned, and Eliza Cade prepared to prove once more that the impossible was hers to own. The crosshairs rested on the cart stacked with shells, sunlight glinting off the dull metal casings as soldiers moved hurriedly around it, and Eliza slowed her breathing until her body felt as steady as stone. She didn't think about the distance, didn't think about the fact that this shot would be almost as unlikely as the one before. She only thought about angles and wind and the rhythm of her heart as it matched the stillness of the earth beneath her. Her finger tightened on the trigger, the rifle cracked, and once more the recoil pushed back against her shoulder as the bullet began its long invisible journey through the air. She held her breath and counted in her head, the silence of those long seconds louder than any explosion. Then the valley erupted. The bullet hit, and the cart of shells burst into a thunderous fireball, the shockwave rippling outward and flinging men off their feet like rag dolls. Smoke billowed into the sky, black and thick, and the camp below descended instantly into chaos, men screaming, scrambling, firing wildly at ridges they could not even see. Her squad reacted instantly, ducking behind rocks as tracer fire stitched across the mountainside, the enemy blindly throwing lead into the slopes. The captain cursed and shouted for them to move positions, and they scrambled down into cover as mortars began thudding against the hillside. Eliza kept her rifle tight against her chest, moving with them, her mind coldly calculating even as explosions showered them with dirt and stone. Harris, running just behind her, let out a low, awed laugh even in the chaos. You're not human, Cade, he muttered. No damn way. That was art. She didn't answer, didn't even glance at him, because she knew the price of what she had just done. She hadn't just delayed the enemy. She had enraged them beyond reason. By the time the squad reached a deeper gorge and slid into cover, the sky behind them was lit with smoke and fire, the sound of enemy shouts echoing faintly even at that distance. The captain wiped sweat from his brow and looked at Eliza, his jaw hard. That shot just bought every convoy in the sector another day, he said, but it also put a target the size of this mountain on our backs. They won't stop until they've buried us for it. Harris leaned against the rock wall, breathing hard, his eyes still wide with something between awe and disbelief. She's already a ghost story, he said. You know that, right? By tonight the whole valley will be talking about the phantom sniper who kills from miles away. Eliza remained quiet, eyes scanning the horizon. She didn't care about ghost stories. She cared about survival. They moved again under the cover of dusk, slipping between shadows, keeping low while the enemy scoured the mountains with drones and searchlights. Twice they had to dive flat against the ground as UAVs passed overhead, their red lights sweeping, but luck, or perhaps Eliza's uncanny sense of timing, kept them undetected. The squad trusted her now in ways they hadn't hours earlier, following her subtle hand gestures when she signaled to wait or move or freeze, as though instinctively believing she saw things they didn't. And she did. Her mind, sharpened by numbers and calculation, seemed to trace patterns in the chaos, predicting movements, reading gaps in surveillance, guiding them like a compass through the storm. Even the captain, hardened and skeptical as he was, deferred to her in those tense moments. But the enemy was relentless. By midnight, the distant hum of helicopters filled the air, and spotlights scoured the ridges, accompanied by the booming thud of heavy guns firing into the dark. The squad took cover in a collapsed stone outpost, half ruined from a war long past, its broken walls barely enough to shield them. Dust rained with each near miss, and the men huddled close, their nerves fraying. The captain crouched beside Eliza, his voice low but intense. "They're pulling out everything to find us. Command wants us to keep moving, to keep pressure on them, but I'm not going to lie. If we don't find a way to disappear, we won't last the night." Harris grunted, loading another magazine into his rifle. "Or maybe we let her take another one of her miracle shots. Seems to be working so far." Eliza looked through a crack in the wall, watching beams of light sweep across the valley like hunting eyes. She said nothing, but her silence spoke enough. Hours bled into one another, the squad's energy thinning under the endless strain. Food was scarce, water lower still, and every man wore the weight of exhaustion on his face. Yet every time doubt threatened to crush them, they looked at Eliza. She never seemed shaken, never seemed uncertain, and in her stillness they found something like courage. The rookie they had mocked now carried the weight of their survival, and though none of them said it aloud, they all knew it. At one point Harris leaned closer to her and whispered almost sheepishly, "How did you even do it, Cade? That shot, that distance, it shouldn't even be possible." She finally looked at him, her expression unreadable, her voice calm. "I didn't think about if it was possible. I just trusted the math." He blinked at her, then gave a crooked grin, shaking his head. "You're a machine." But in his tone there was no insult now, only admiration. As dawn approached again, the squad moved once more, slipping out of the ruined outpost before drones could mark their heat signatures. They pushed higher into the mountains, toward a plateau the captain believed might give them enough cover to regroup and request extraction. Every step was agony, but the thought of survival pushed them forward. Eliza brought up the rear, her eyes always scanning, her mind always calculating. She knew the enemy would not give up, that they would hunt her until one side or the other was gone. And deep inside, beneath the calm exterior she wore like armor, she felt something else building. Not fear, not doubt, but a rising fire. She was no longer the rookie they mocked. She was the edge of the war they had never expected, and she was ready for whatever came next. Marina ki zindagi ik nayi raftar pakar chuki ti, lekin hoa kalaga bichain si bathan ko tire nahitha. Unho ni sosha the kumarina thak karhar man lugi, lake access cho deji or apna business ban kar deji. Magar wo unk kailan kubaraks, din ba din jiata mazbut hodi jarahi ti. Uski kanuni team abtak hoa ki her filed petition ka jawab de rahi ti or har dafa anhiye sabut samni la kar daike jate jo hoa kajutan ko binakab kar deet. Abunk pos. Surf Ike Rasta the Marina ko personal tour par target karna. Exuba jab Marina apni lake house kasamni kari apni boat check kar rahi ti, usandeka ko uski darwas par koino chipka hua hai. Us par lika the Yejaga tumhari nahi hai, ec cho du warna tumhai nuxin uthatna padega. Marina eni no thea, gusa uski chair par sof the magarusan kud ko sambhala. Wojanti ti kuya hoa kadar ka azar the, wahar rahi the isliya damkian par uter atha. Usan foran apni lawyer ko phone kia or note ki tasvir bejdi. Lawyer eni use tasali di ku police ko be involved kia jaega or yes sabunk case ko or mazbut karega. Marina eni tab faisla kar liya kub wo surf apni liya nahi, balki har USS insan kuliya lad rahi hai jisa hoag's tanaso log tang kardi hain. Din guzart gay or court ka ik bara hearing ka din aa gaya. Is dafa judge any dano parties ko balaya the kudano apni sabut samni rakin. Hoa ka lawyer any perjosh torpar bola. Marina any illegally lake access occupy kia high, or ya area surf Hoa members kuliya restricted high. Judge any sita sabut manj. Hoa any maps or papers daike, lekin unsab main koi asli stamp ya authenticity nahi ti. Jab Marina ki baria yi, uski lawyer any asal government record daikaya, jisman saf lika the kulake ka wahisa public property high or Marina kaas parhak high. Judge any papers dek or kaha, yesabut sabasi mazbut hain. HOAAP apna case justify nahi kar pay. HOA members kachar p rangad gay. Magar woa bizid mainda. Unho any kaha. Magar Marina any rules tad kar apna business shurukiya, use is community ku norms kumutabik chalna haga. Marina any tab kadage bad kar kaha. Judge sahab in hon mui shuru si derain ki koshish ki. Jab main ne shihara inhon mui kaha ka lake access surfing kahai, jab kuasal main yasab kuliya hai. Inho any jut letters beej, dan kian d or mere business ko nuxan pochang ki koshish ki. Ye ke surf mere bear main nahi, yasab unlagan ku bear main hai jinko hoag's log dar karang hak chin lead hain. Courtroom main ik pal kuliya kamoshi. Judge any goer kar hoa kalagan ki taraf deka, for kaha. Hoa ka maksad community ki batari hoda hai, na kalagan ko tang karna. Jo kuch aap any kia wol misuse of power hai. Ya court marina kuhak main faisla dita hai. Ya sun kar marina kudil se bojath gaya. Hoa members kuchair lal ho gay, unki sari minute midi main mil gai. Magar yahan bot kadam nahi hui ti. Judge any or be age bad kar kaha. Or apki organization par penalty be lagai jadi hai, jo marina kanuksan ki barpai kuliya hogi. Marina any sukun ki sans li jab wo court se bahar nikli, log use mubarak bad din lage. Local media be wahan ti or unhon marina se interview kia. Marina any camera kusami muskurakar kaha. Ya surf mary jeet nahi, balki har USS insan ki jeet hai jo hoag's lagan ki zid or galat policies ka shakar hua hai. Abwak de gaya hai kuhum sab mil kar and tanasul groups ko roken. Uski alphas any lagan kudil ko chulia. Din dalta gaya, magar marina ka hausla ab bibulanda. Usan lake kukin arkada ho kar paani ki laren deki or sosha. Main apna hak jita hai or ab koi mui is esi maram nahi kar sakta. Ya uski jit ka surf pela kadam that asal safar ab shuru huadap. Courtroom kuas din sab lagan ki nazrian ek hai taraf ti. Karen Jean Hon Apni AAP KO Sabasi Upper Samajan Wali Oratan Ki Misal Samji T, Lekin of Judge Kusamni Kadi Kamprahi T. Courtroom Main Gandhi Baji or Judge Any Gaval Mara, Sab Chup Hoge. Advocate Any Sabut Ekek Karka Rake. Video clips, audio recordings or Liki Hui Shikayatain Jaim Karen Ki Har Galti Samni Ayi. Marina Owner Ki Tarafasi Lawyer Confident the, Asan Kaha. Your Honor, Ye ke surfek lake access ka nahi bulky power ka galat istimal or harassment ka hai. Mere client ko surf apna hak chahi jo unka lawfully hai. Karen ki tarafasi lawyer any koshish ki defend karn ki, magar jab sabut samni rake gata uska case hil gaya. Judge any files deki, camera ki recordings deki jaim Karen or uski sathian ko ger kanuni tor par danki deet or rasta block kardi deka ja sakta the. Karen any peli confident hon ki acting ki, Magar J's high sabut bart gay uski chair ka rangad gaya. Court main lagan any cheek kar order, ken par majbur kar dia judge ko. Judge any gus main kaha, silence in the court. First seeth Karen ko dek kar kaha, appen power ka misuse kia, apni neighbor ko zalil kia, or apni hoa ki authority ka galat istimal kardi hu lake access rockni ki koshish ki. Ye legal high. Karen any turan aro din ki koshish ki, wo dramatize kar rahi ti ku wo bekhari hai. Asan kaha, Your Honor mui sab samajan main galti ho gai ti, main jan buj kar kuch nahi kia. Judge any sakt lodge main jawab dia, sabut apki kalaf hai, or yes sab kuch jan buj kar hua. Apnek shaks ka hak china, jo ku insaf or insaniat dano ku kalaf hai. For judge any faisla sanaya ku hoa Karen ko Germana dina haga or uska chairperson ka sik kadam kar dia gaya. Marina owner kuchair parek muskanayi, asan halka sa sarjukaya judge ki taraf or dil main shakriya ada kia. Karen courtroom esi nikalti wak cheek rahi ti, yes sab unfair high. Yes sab merry reputation karab karn ki sazish high. Lekin ab koi uski bat nahi sun rahada. Bahar media ku cameras us par jair, reporters any sawal p sawal kai magar uski pas jawab nada. Dusri taraf marina owner ku pas reporters a or unhon kaha. Apnhimat di kei, kais feel kar rahi hain? Usan bias muskurate hu kaha, mui apna hak mila hai, or yesab unlagan kuliya misal hai jo hoa yajishi be galat authority ku pressure main chup ho jade hain. Ustin ku bad hoa community main ek naya dor shuru hua. Lagan any decide kia ku future main koi be ek shaks apni power ka misuse nahi karega. Lake access sab kuliya kulatha, or log sukunesi enjoy karn lage. Karen apnigar main band ho gai ti. Uski Sathian any bi uska Sath Cho dia. Uska nama blagan kuliya ek misal bangaya kugamand or zom kabi bijit nahi sakt. Marina owner rat ko lake kukin arkada the hawa kahal ke jank or paani ki larian uski dil ko sekunda rahi ti. Usan sosha, akir insaf jit gaya. Yeladai surf uska hak wapas lena ki nahi ti, ya daikang ki ti kahimat or sakai kusamni sabut or insaf hamesha gt hain. Karen kuliya ya sabak the kujo shaks dusran kahak chienta hai woa kir main kud hai tanha or zalil hojata hai, or marina owner kuliya yejit uski liyer isit, azadi or sukun ki nei rehan ka aghazda. Samundar ki garayan jasi kamoshi of marina kugar main nahi ti, kyunkus nachoe Karen or uski por group ko a stul shitai ti kuwoab kud garasi bahar nikalte hu sakti thane kumarina ka samna hogaya tokia haga. Lekin kahani yahin kadam nahi hodi, kyunk jab ek selfish or greedy group harjata hai to wo chup reta hai, par zayadadur tak nahi. Part 8 Ki shuruad islam isi hodi hai jahan hoa Karen apni bachi kuchi izit ko bishain kuliya ek or plan banati hai. Marina apni gar kuvaranda par beth kar lake ka sukun dekrahi ti, cup of tea uski hath main or uska kuda uski pas lida huada. Usan sosha sab kuch thik ho gaya, par uski samni isi ek black SUV rukti hai or uzmi isi Karen or uski do supporters nikalte hain. Karen eni ankin guma kar kaha. Marina tum lagta hai tum jeet gai ho? Yatobias shuruat hai. Tum humian publicly embarrass kar rahi ho, par tum janti nahi main kaun hoon. Marina muskarei kup neche raka or sidi kadi ho gai. Usan apni awaz main utni hai thandak raki jitni lake kupani main hodi hai. Karen tum her kalaf evidence of mir hath main hai, tum chahi jitna bikeho, tum hari har move tum or phase deji. Tum her illegal fines, tum hara harassment sab mir lawyer kupas documented hai. Tum cheho to abibi ruk jo, warna tum apni liya or bura kar rahi ho. Karen chiki, main tum ace nahi kodungi. Lake access? Tum jc outsider ko? Not possible. Us whacked marina any garage esi ek bada file nikala or unk samni fank dia. Wo file itni modi ti ku Karen ku supporters any be surprise esi deka. Ya court kuliya ready high. Tum jo illegal kam kia high, tum jo paisa lagan esi extra nikala, or jo threats die, sab ka records mir pas hain. Ab decide karo, tum jail ka rastalina hai ya chup chap gar by the rena high. Karen ku supporters ku chair ka rangad gaya, on home Karen ko deka or fur dir esi usi alag ho gay. Karen ek pal kalia akili re gai. Marina enias wak deka krivar kia. Karen tumher jays log samaged hain ku power kamat lab dusran ko dabana high. Lekin asal power insan ku character main hodi high. Or tum wasab ko dia high. Ab tum chahi jitna chico koi tumher asath nahi dega. Karen gus esi teeth piece car wapas apni SUV main by t or door esi surf dula day. Marina ku andar ekajib ese sukundi, jays ek bada bojath gaya ho. Wodo bara lake kupas gai, apni kursi par by t or Gary sans lias and sosha kakabi kabi ladai kubad jo kamoshiati high, wo sab smithi hodi high. Us rat, Marina kudostun eni uski gar party rocky. Sabin uska shakriya ada kia kuusn hoa kazalm kakat makia. Ek purana neighbor bola. Marina, tum humian wo azadi delay high jisk liya hum kabasi lad rahida. Tum humian daikaya ku ek insin ki himat kis terapura system badal sakti high. Marina eni muskurakar jawab dia, main akili kuch nahi kardi agar tum sab soth nadit. Lekin ek bat yad rakna, kabi bi dureo damko whale lagan kusamni juko mat. Agar tum sakai par ho, tojit tumhari hai hogi. Lake kuyupar chan ki rashni chamak rahi ti, hawa naram ti, or sab log kushiasi hans rahida. Hoa Karen ab surfek bura kwab bangai ti, or marina apni jeet kajashan mana rahi ti. Kahani yahan ek message kasath kadam hodi hai. Kabi bi apni hakasi piche mad hato, chahi samni wali takik kitni badi kunal age. Kyunk jab dil main sach or himat ho, to saps badi Karen bi hamesha hara dija sakti hai. The end.